before we get into round 3 of season 12 of the Apex Online Championship, let's have a look at the Drivers and Teams Championships as we go into this round. Oscar Moten is in first place in the Drivers' Championship, having taken second place in both the opening rounds. He's got 176 points. Just a 9-point lead over Rudy Gies of Intruder Racing Team, who's in second place. Cav Bud of Rev Sport International is in third. Had an okay result with a 10th place at Silverstone, but a win at Kota gave him 139 points. He's 28 points adrift of Rudy Gies. Fourth place is Bashikchi of Visually Impaired Racing. He's had a 5th and a 6th so far, so he's just behind Cav in 4th place. Steve Banks is in 5th place. Manuel Duque of Gently Bentley in the Lexus goes into this round in 6th. Mine of Green Cow Racing is in 7th. Guilherme Roca is in 8th. Eric Slogans 9th, and Scooby-Doo is in 10th. Looking at the Teams Championship, Rev Sport International currently head the table with 174 points. Just behind them, Intruder Racing Team have got 167 points. And on joint points with them, it's Visually Impaired Racing, Blind Guy Morphy and Mishikichi with 167 points. Gently Bentley and the Lexus are in 4th, Manuel Duque and Paul Martin. They are slightly adrift. Green Cow Racing are in 5th place with A-Mini. Beeswax Racing moved up to 6th. Steve Bezic and myself and Lord Nem currently down in 6th. We're not having a great season so far. We'll be looking for some better results from this round going forward. Riders on the Storm are in 7th place, Daniel Vallis and Steelco. And Urban Led Racing, Stefan Blay and Nico Urbantat have yet to get off the mark. They round out the table. So that's where we are with the Drivers and the Teams Championship coming into this round. Let's see how round 3 panned out. Join us as the Drivers line up for the start for round 3 of season 12 of the Apex Online racing season for ACC. This is Tier 8. Cav Bud has qualified on pole, winner last time out at Kota. Nishiki Chi from Visually Impaired Racing qualified in 2nd place, and Oscar Moten currently leading the Drivers' Championship. He's qualified in 3rd place. He'll be hoping to step one up from the first 2 rounds, finishing 2nd both times, and get to the top of the podium. Stefan Blay qualified in 4th place. Stefan had a difficult first couple of rounds, but he'll be hoping to make a better result this time. The lights are green and they're away, and Gav Diesel has immediately got a drive-through penalty. Must have started out of position. Stefan trying to look at the inside there to get up the inside of Cav in turn 1. And a little tap on the back of the Honda there from Meshiki. But Gav's away. Cav is away. Apologies, I'm going to get his name mixed up all day. Round turn 2. Stefan Blay has nipped up into 2nd place. Shiki dropped down to 3rd. And the Aston Martin of Moten dropped down into 4th place. Bit of a dive there from the BMW under braking. Comes right up to the back of the Porsche of Stefan Blay. And into the chicane they go for the first time. Through safely there. We'll have a quick jump down the field, see how it's going for the rest of them. Looks reasonably okay. I do know there's a big catch there, a little bumping and barging going through the chicane. But with Kazurski, oh, and they've hit again. They rolled the brakes now as the rest of the field splits go around them. But it's all going wrong there at the back of the field. That's Kazurski. Oh, and another big hit then as they try and get going. It's not going wrong at the back of the field then. That did look a little bit like Bielever was involved in that. It was indeed. So all sorts of shenanigans, as they like to say, at the back of the field. Up front, Cav Bud retains his lead at the end of lap 1. He's over the line in 1st place. Stefan Blay in 2nd place behind him. Mishikichi from Visually Impaired Racing comes through in 3rd place. Round turn 1 they go, a little bit wide for the Ferrari there in 6th place. That will be Beremeshkov, who was doing so well at Kota until the last few laps when he ended up finishing 7th. He was up for a podium at one point, so Bonamechkov will be hoping to move a bit further forward this and retain a good result. But there are a few drivers ahead of him who have a lot to say. The big difficulty with the Hungaroring is getting past anybody. It usually ends up a train of cars with no way past. The pace is too even all the way down the field. The only real opportunities for a pass is usually turn 1 at the end of the main straight. Other than that, you are waiting on a mistake from the other driver. So this round, now we're into it, it's 90 minutes long, and the weather predictions are a bit varied. There's a possibility of rain, and that's what most of the drivers will have considered when evaluating their strategies. So a 90-minute race does allow for open pit stops and refueling as allowed. So very open strategy for everybody to use. Well, the weather's a big factor. When you're in the race, as Blay has a little bit of a look there at Bud, where he's on the wrong side really to make a pass. And that's left the door open for Mishiki. Visually impaired racing driver, but he's on the outside for the next corner. But he's going to make that one stick, I think. He's got the inside then, as they come around for the final corner. But the Porsche is still just ahead. Final corner, where the BMW is in a good position. It's going to be neck and neck all the way down the start-finish straight between these two. Blay just ahead of the BMW and has moved to the inside for turn 1 to try and cover any move. Porsche goes deep into turn 1 and everybody's squeezing up behind the BMW there to get through. No change in the order, but it was an opening there for Mishiki on Stefan. But he managed to hang on to that position just. So as we're saying, the weather prediction within ACC to tell you what the weather's going to do can only see up to 30 minutes ahead. So in a 90-minute race, you really want to see the first hour out before you box. Because if the rain comes in after you've pitted, you'll have to do an extra pit stop compared to everybody else. Cav Bud there, still away at the front, but his lead is very, very slender indeed over Stefan Blay, who's got the BMW Mishiki right down his neck. Motin waiting in the background in 4th place. And as predicted, it's forming into a little train. And a cigarette paper between all of his cars. All the way down to Bonamechkov there, who's diving out a little bit, trying to look for a bit of a gap perhaps. There's no way through. Rudy Geese in the Aston Martin there, number 57, just hanging out the back. Still definitely in contact with the leaders. So 1st to 7th place, virtually all together. And there's a 2-second gap down to Manuel Duque of Gently Bentley in the Lexus. And his teammate Paul Martin directly behind him in 8th and 9th place. And a very, very small gap back to Darras in the Audi number 90. And then quite a bit of a gap, 1.7 seconds down to the next group of cars. Mihai and Beeswax Racing's Lord Nem. And Mark Foster. And then Klomp. And then another gap of virtually a couple of seconds down to Morphy. Visually impaired racing. He's got Gold right behind him in a Lamborghini. And just trying to keep contact with those two is Vallis. Another little gap down to Burks. And very much on his own. I'm assuming that from this point forward, drivers have been involved in perhaps some small incidents. Field Racing Seb. And then a big gap of Scooby-Doo. Just having Migo passed in there in the Beeswax Racing. Just having a bit of a moment for Scooby-Doo there. It was in 20th. But as I'm showing 27th, he's dropped right down the field. Conley in the Mercedes. I think that something may have happened there. Just missed it. Just came into it just as I was coming through on these drivers. We'd reached Burks in 19th. Field Racing Seb was very much on his own in 19th. Now it's Logan's in 20th place. FLP 21st. All these drivers very much out of contact with the leaders now. Kozierski 22nd. Gav Diesel in 23rd. Conley we just saw recovering back onto the track, 24th. I'm down in 25th, having managed to have a spin on lap 2 on my own. Put me right to the back of the field. So Beeswax Racing down in 25th. Scooby-Doo, who did say after this race that Hungaroring is one of his least favourite tracks and somewhere he's not very comfortable racing, so struggling already. He'll have been so pleased when he saw it was a 90-minute race on the calendar. Schmiak down in 27th. Brown in the pits at the moment. That's very early on to be in the pits, so something big has happened to Brown. And Bieler also recovering from the pits. We did see him recovering from an incident just after the chicane where there was a lot of comings together. Back round to the front of a race. Cav Bud trying to stretch away from Stefan Blay in the Porsche, but still that gap only a quarter of a second. Mishiji just behind them, but they have pulled out a big gap now. So Bodimeshkov in 4th, so something has happened whilst we've been looking down the field. And the Motin, who I think was tucked up behind them, has now dropped back to 5th. But that gap of 3 seconds means the front 3 are moving a little bit clear of the field. Oh, Bodimeshkov well wide there. That's definitely opened the door for Motin to have a look into the next corner. He's got a good position. Bodimeshkov must lose that position there. He left plenty of space. He was aware that Motin was on the inside of it, so Motin has recovered back up to 4th place. Current leader of the Drivers' Championship trying to get back up towards the front of the field. Bodimeshkov recovering. Stay behind Motin. Rudy Geese, as ever, hanging it on the back of that group of cars. Now that big gap now to the front 3, well over 3 seconds. Meanwhile behind Duque, Martin and Daras have caught up with these. And there's a big train of cars there actually. Mihai, Lord Nem and Klomp, I think. Klomp is the last car really in this big bunch. There's a small gap there to Foster that's opened up. Just see the light green McLaren of Foster just off the back of this big group. Cav Bud still resisting the pressure from the Porsche of Blay, who's definitely trying to have a look there down the chicane, but there's usually no way through. There's only one line really through this section of the track. Part of the problem of the Hungaroring is getting that pass made, and this single line for a lot of a track is what makes it so difficult. There's a small chance at the end of this short straight if you can get up the inside, but you've got to be really close coming out the previous corner and relying on the other driver perhaps making a small mistake. And the next best chance is at the end and to turn 1 at the end of the start and finish straight. Anywhere else really, it's only if the other driver makes a really big mistake and loses a lot of momentum. Porsche still trying to have a bit of a dive up the inside. This track apparently really suiting the Porsche with its short straights and tight corners. But Honda is very much the weapon of choice for Season 12 with the recent BOP changes in ACC. Not many Hondas though in Tier 8. In fact, I think Cav is the only driver that may have gone for the Honda. Looking up and down the field, BMW fairly popular, the Lexus as well. But it's a real scattering of different types of cars. There's quite a few McLarens. McLaren's been popular for a long time now in ACC. And Blay putting the pressure on Cav all the way through these first 6 laps of the race. Motin now starting to pull away from Bodimeshkov. Motin selecting the trusty Aston Martin. Always a good go-to car when you first come to ACC. Very stable, very easy to get over the curbs. I ran it myself for a few seasons. I just eventually became a bit frustrated with its inability to turn well in my experience. And it always felt like it was a milk float when you were trying to accelerate. But Motin is doing well. Now 1.3 seconds clear of Bodimeshkov, who's got to be wary of Rudy Geese right on his tail. And Duque trying to maintain contact with it. And Bodimeshkov made another big mistake there coming out of that corner. That's been his weakness on this track. That's how he lost that place to Motin. And Rudy Geese was having a good look then. So if he's not careful, Boromechkov will continue to go backwards if he can't get that corner right and stay on the track. Of course, if he gets enough track cut warnings, he'll have to do a drive-through, which will be pretty fatal at the Hungaroring because it's so difficult to get past. He's coming down the start-finish straight, and it looks like that position is pretty safe for now. Rudy Geese tightening his tail. He's gone very defensive there, though. Boromechkov pulled right over to the right-hand side of the track, but he's well clear of the Aston Martin of Geese as they go into turn 1. And I think that perhaps that small mistake from Boromechkov has caused these two to back up slightly towards Duque. Two gently Bentley drivers trying to get back on the back of this group. Just slightly behind them. Mihai in the Aston Martin has got Lord Nem on his tail from Beeswax Racing. Oh, and now Klomp is trying to get onto the back of the Lexus. Foster has drifted off the back of this group now. The gap to the McLaren for Foster is 1.4 seconds, and there's a huge gap down to Vallis, who's down in 14th place over 7 seconds. Or Scooby-Doo, like I said, did complain that this track is not his favourite. Slowly dropping away. Now 5 seconds is the gap to myself, Beeswax Racing, over 833 in 24th place. Scooby-Doo struggling a little at Hungaroring after I think it was a good strong drive at Kota, managing to catch Morphy just in the last couple of laps. Conley tight on the tail of Diesel, but they were a long way down out of the action. I was just trying to get back onto the back of these two. Meanwhile, out front, Cav Bud continues to resist the pressure from Blay. And the CG slightly dropping off the back of these. Nearly 0.7 of a second is the gap. Won't feel like a lot of time to Blay, I'm sure, but I'm sure he'll be focused forward, trying to catch Cavbud, trying to put the Honda driver under pressure. So teams-wise, it's Rev Sport International in first place, and then Urban Led Racing in second, and Visually Impaired Racing third. Going into this round, Motin not in a team, so driving solo. But I think he's slowly coming back onto the back of that BMW. He's pushing there, it's showing 1.2 seconds. Gap now to Rudy Geese, and Geese did get past Boromechkov at some point. So Geese now into 5th place. We'll be trying to get onto the back of Motin. The gap there, 4.6 seconds. Possible that Boromechkov was a little bit of a cork in the bottle for him. Still a chain of cars all the way down there to that is Foster, so very much 5th down to 13th, pretty close to each other. Paul Martin just slightly slipping off the back of his teammates, 1.1 seconds, and then there's a little train of cars behind him, but still very much Boromechkov is the head of the train. And that Ferrari does seem to be struggling a little. Every time we cut to Boromechkov, he doesn't seem too comfortable in the corners. Through the chicane. And the next... Oh, he's gone big style then. Said he was struggling a bit, and that really showed. The back of the car just kicked out of him. Must have caught the curb. And that was a big clump into the barriers there. Both the Gently Bentley drivers nipped through. Boromeshkov does a fast recovery, but I don't know how much damage he may have had from that. And the is that Daras in the Audi? Looking left and looking right, trying to find it is Daras, trying to find a way around the Ferrari. Trying to go on the outside. Oh, it's going to be difficult to make that work. He's trying not to hit the back of the Ferrari, taking a different line through that corner. And everybody's getting backed up behind as they see a bit of an opportunity as Boromeshkov continues to struggle. Got the power down there now on the start-finish straight, and that looks too big a gap for Daras to be able to get through before the end of the start-finish straight. Boromeshkov has elected to keep going for the time being, despite whatever damage may have come from that big collision with the barriers. But they're all queuing up now behind, trying to find a way through. You can see the way Daras is able to close up pretty quickly there in the corners. Boromeshkov under a lot of pressure. That Ferrari's been looking a bit tricky to handle every time we've cut to him. Now he's been in the barriers, that problem will be worse. Coming up to where it happened last time, the chicane coming up very soon. Daras needs to bear in mind there's really no way through in this next section. What you want to do is concentrate on keeping the speed up, keeping close. And then if Boromeshkov can make that mistake again, coming onto the short straight in the next few corners, that will give him his best opportunity. Last time he tried to go on the outside of the corner, which was always going to be a struggle to make work. Is he going to keep it on the track this time? He goes. That's fair enough. Didn't go too widely off track. Well, no opportunity this time for Daras. A little bit wide there from the Ferrari going around that corner. If Daras can keep it cool and try and keep on the back of the Ferrari. Pulls right up behind him now. And if oh, you got a little slide then. That will have ruined it this lap. Small slide for the Audi. Oh, he's really closed up on the Ferrari though. But the Ferrari gets much better acceleration out of the second part of that corner. Daras is quite close despite the slide. And Boromeshkov forces him around the outside. But they are side by side coming into T1. And I think Daras... oh, he's going to just make that one work. Got to keep the pressure on the throttle, keep the speed up. And into the next left-hander, he's got the inside lines. That should be enough now for Daras to get through. And Boromeshkov, who's been struggling a lot as we've come through these first 10 laps. So his tyres are still pretty fresh. So it's going to be a long, long evening for Boromeshkov in this race as Daras gets through. Next driver who'll be looking for a way to get past will be Mihai. Not Boromeshkov's favourite race either. He'll be joining Scooby-Doo with adding this to his list of least favourite tracks. Daras half a second away from Boromeshkov already. And that gap looks to be opening to me every corner. You can... Boromeshkov already on a bad line there, he's in the middle of a track, so not going through that corner with the optimum speed, and the Aston Martin of Mihai has a look up the inside, too far away. Foster closing up in the background. There's been some changes behind, probably with all that chaos as everybody suddenly got bottled up with each other, but Foster's come through on Klomp, and Lord Nem has dropped back down to 13th. And Boromeshkov realises he's just going backwards at this rate, and if he's got damage he needs to box in and get it sorted out because it's just costing him a mountain of time. So Boromeshkov rolls in towards the pits on lap 12. Meanwhile, just as that's happening, Blaze goes right up on Bud there, trying to make a go on the outside at the back end of the course, just coming up towards the chicane. That attempt by Blaze lets Meshiki through, and we've got Motin right on the back of these four as well, so the action heating up at the front of the race as well. Bud's taking their opportunity of that aborted attack by Blade to try and get away a little bit more, open up a few car lengths. Blake trying to get back onto that. The Honda suddenly seems to be struggling. He's got a very defensive line there going into that corner. He will not get around that corner quickly from there. That's really giving Blake an opportunity to try and get up the inside for the next corner. And still defensive. Oh, and they've touched. And that has spun Bud around, and Blake's trying to do the right thing, but I think, you know, Bud was on a very, very defensive line there. It was never going to end well. So that tap to the back has really opened it up there. Mishiki Chi looks to have jumped through into first place, and Motin has followed him. Whilst those two had a bit of an incident, Blake has dropped down to third. Bud recovering, shows fifth at the moment, so it's all change at the front of a race. And all this was happening whilst Bodimechkov was losing places, and Blake still trying to do the right thing. He's forced to let Geese through. So Rudy Geese goes through into third place while Blake waits for Bud to catch him up. I presume he's going to let Bud through. And that'll result in them both losing out big style. So Bud recovers to fourth. Blake will be down in fifth, and a change at the front now. Blake will be needs to be cautious about Mamoduke, who'll be trying to get through as best he can. But I think Blake will be able to get back up to speed. I don't think the damage was big. It was only a little tap between Porsche and the Honda. But maybe both drivers want to have a look at that one, because Bud was getting super defensive and really cutting off the line, and looks like Blake may have slightly misjudged it. So don't know if that one will end up with the stewards, but it was definitely very much a case of they were both trying to race each other. Way now having to defend from Duque behind him. And up front, Ishiki having to fend off Motin, who has come second in the first two rounds and will be wanting to get one step further up the podium, and may sense that opportunity. It's so difficult to pass at the Hungaroring that if he can get past the visually impaired racing driver and get out front, this may well be a good victory for him. There's a long way to go, only 13 laps in. That incident has opened up the front of a race, so these two are now 2.7 seconds clear of Geese. Bud a further 2 seconds down. It took him a little while to recover from the spin. Probably worried about catching other cars when he rejoined the track from where he got spun out. Blake down in fifth. Duque, no change for him really. Remains in sixth place. Shigi still under pressure from Motin, who will be really keen to get through now. Through into one of the areas of the track where there is an opportunity to pass. If you can get a good bit of overspeed. Motin has got a bit of speed there, but not enough. Will be a wild dive down the inside to try and make that one work. Rudy Geese just in the background, showing 2.7 seconds. What we want to be able to see now is, will he be able to close that gap in? Especially if these two do start fighting each other, but Motin will be very, very keen to get through on the BMW. Over the line for another lap. And as we go into the next sector, the gap to Geese drops to 2.3 seconds, so 0.4 of a second made up there by Geese on that lap. Still the two Lexi of Gently Bentley / in the Lexus now of Duque and Martin run line astern in 5th and 6th. You can see that ACC has decided to pop the toast thing up at the bottom all the time again, whether I want it to or not. hate this game. At times, the interface is just bloody awful. Klomp and Foster now exchanging places, I think, on a regular basis. Nem just out the back of them, so with all the changes going on and Boromechkov dropping out, having to take those repairs. Boromechkov now all the way down in 25th place. So, field's still fairly close together this early on in the race. So that pitting in, probably I presume a change of tyres, potentially fuel. He's a bit early in the race, he possibly might need another stop yet. Pushed Boromechkov all the way down into 25th. His next target up the road will be Scooby-Doo. Kozierski there in the pits. So he's going to drop back down the field. Kozierski also pitting quite early on. Allow Scooby-Doo to go through. Meanwhile, we've got a back marker there. That's Braun recovering through the passing myself. So Braun is a lap down at this point. I'm in 22nd. Diesel just ahead of me, and then Conley just ahead of us. But Diesel, Braun trying to unlap himself and get back into the race, but it's going to be a big tall order to undo an entire lap at the Hungaroring. But I did see him coming quite aggressively, and I thought I'd rather stay out of trouble, to be honest. Let him go through and then try and get on his tails and follow him, but we were losing a lot of time down here at the back of the field and slowly dropping away, completely out of contention. Out front, the gap between Mishiki and Motin, 0.6. Motin unable to find a way through. That gap at 0.6 really stabilising a little bit now for Mishiki. Rudy Geese, though, is closing in fast. Was 2.7 seconds, and now just a lap or two later, it's just 1.6 seconds. He's got these two in his sights. Rudy is in second place in the Drivers' Championship coming into this round. So a good result here. Will keep him close to Motin, but at the moment Motin is ahead, so advantage to Motin. He will remain in the front of the Drivers' Championship if he can hang on to this second place. That gap looked to be opening even more now to the BMW. Another factor for the drivers to consider is, with this longer race of 90 minutes, is preservation of your tyres. Quite slidey at times at the Hungaroring and can hurt your tyres quite a bit. Normally in the 60-minute races, each set of tyres only needs to do a 30-minute stint. Here, it's very much down to the driver on how long they want to make each set of tyres last. Fully open on the strategy, so you can split it evenly with 45 minutes on each set, but then you do run the risk of rain possibly appearing just after you've boxed for tyres, and then compromising you with a further stop. But if you get the timing right and the rain arrives, you only need to make one stop. Gives you a massive advantage over fellow drivers if you only do one pit stop versus two. Rudy Geese, you can almost see him closing up corner by corner on these two. Very wide there for the Aston Martin and Motin. And if Motin was thinking very, very strategically, he'll be thinking all he really needs to do for the Drivers' Championship is remain ahead of Geese. That'll be his best result, really, if he can't get past Mishij for the win. Possibility of a back marker just up ahead for these two. I saw another car then, just out of shot. Coming around to the start-finish straight. Gap to Geese yo-yoing a little bit as they go through the different sectors, but definitely coming down. Yes, there is somebody just ahead of Mishiji. Still a bit of a distance away at the moment. He's definitely closing in on another car, a back marker. Can't see who it is from this distance yet, but that could be a bit of a factor. The rest of the field, though, the gap's generally opening up to a second or so. Oh yeah, it drives me spare, it does. Why does this thing just keep popping up all the time? Yeah, got rid of it. So from the top, Mishikichi just ahead of Motin, 0.6 of a second, 0.7 of a second is where it seems to be stuck at. Rudy Geese in third place, steadily closing in on the leading pair. Cav Bud, who was leading for quite a while until he was unfortunately caught by the Porsche of Blay. Blay's dropped out at the moment, dropped down to P11, so I don't know what happened there. Mamalduque now up to 5th. Paul Martin, his teammate for Gently Bentley in the Lexus, right behind him in 6th place. Laras, who managed to get past Bodimechkov, is now just 2 seconds behind the Lexus, so I'm not sure he's having a little bit of trouble trying to catch those two up. Mihai is in 8th place. Foster just behind him, very close, in fact, just less than half a second in 9th. Klomp in 10th place. And Blay must have had a spin or something, because he's just in between Klomp and them. Oh, Blay having another difficult afternoon, really. Was in 2nd place for a long time. Caught Bud. They both had a bit of a spin, and then something else has happened, and now he's dropped all the way down to 11th. Lord Nem for Beeswax Racing. He's in 12th place. And then there's a huge gap then to Field Racing. Seb in the orange and blue McLaren. Just ahead of Logan's, who's in 14th place. And there's just a gap of 1.8 seconds, and then there's quite a little train with Vallis, Burks, Gold, and then FLP. And then 16-second gap. I'm now through on my own. Can confirm that unfortunately there was coming together between Braun, O'Conley and Diesel ahead of me. I was like the parting of the Red Sea. I slipped through and into 19th place, and it was foot down then for me trying to catch up with FLP. There's quite a big gap. It's not showing there at the moment, but it was quite a long way between me and FLP, and that was my target for the rest of the race. Diesel just behind me. I think he said after the race he had a bit of damage following the incident with Braun, and that caused him to slowly slip back away from me. Scooby-Doo still plugging away on his least favourite track in 21st. Bodimechkov trying to recover from early pit to fix that damage from when he went into the barriers. Here's a Conley in the pits, and I do believe he may have withdrawn from the race shortly after this. Shimek is in 25th. Razerski we saw coming out of the pits. He must have also had damage and had to box for repairs quite early on. 25th. Braun, who got involved in that incident with cars a lap up with him, is down in 27th. So either he needed repairs again, or he just simply slipped backwards following that incident. Baylor currently, unfortunately, last in the field. Or at least he's still going. Quite a few did not finish the race. Out front, Misic still not quite able to catch that car just ahead. And we went right down the field. Is that Conley? Is it Mercedes, I think? Is it Kazurski? I think it might be Kazurski. Who's ahead, or just ahead of Misic? Yes, I think yes it is. It's Kazurski. So Kazurski about to be caught by the leaders. Still a few seconds ahead. Motin still trying to find a way past that BMW. It feels like he's been plugging away at that for hours now. But meanwhile, Rudy Geese just now, it says 1.2 seconds there. It looks a hell of a lot less on the image. So on the picture, it looks a lot less than 1.2 seconds. That gap was at the last sector. Now these two ahead of him have had a little bit of a moment with each other. That's allowed him to close right up. Certainly the gap between Misic and Motin is only 0.2 of a second now. He's Still staying at 1.2. Looks less on screen, but definitely... now it says 0.6. Yeah, it has come right down. Oh, mistake there from Motin. Gone a bit wide, and that has allowed Geese to close right up to the back of him. So Motin was really close to Masic. I wonder if he perhaps tried a dive into turn 1. It didn't quite come off. And as a result, he went a bit wrong at turn 1, and that's allowed Geese to get right back onto the backside of him. And Motin now was putting pressure out, and now he's getting it from Geese. He's trying to get back onto the back of the BMW though. Geese of Intruder Racing Team. There was a clean-up of the teams after this round, and those teams that only had one driver are removed, and the window is closed after round 2 for creating teams. This is in order to prevent 2 drivers that are doing well just deciding to make a team just so they can win it easily when they're 3 or 4 rounds in. I mean, know they've got it in the bag. So teams really need to be sort of decided in the first couple of races, and those that haven't managed to get a teammate get eliminated. And one of those was Intruder Racing Team, which going into this round only had one driver. So we'll find out after the race if he managed to get a teammate and retain that team, or whether it was eliminated. Really the battle between Motin and Geese is for the Drivers' Championship. Motin currently leading, Geese in second. Cav Bud, of course, is also involved. He's third in the Drivers' Championship, following that victory at Kota. He's currently running in 4th place, so that'll definitely keep him in the fight. He's currently 139 points to Oscar Motin's 176 lead. So he'll remain in contact if everybody finishes in these positions. But he will drop a little bit further behind both Geese and Motin. Drive through for Bayliss. So that'll be for track cuts. So the Mercedes of Bayliss will have to serve a drive through, and at this track that will hurt him mightily. Despite some of the gaps, most of the field is still pretty close together, so he'll drop right down the field if he serves that drive through, and drop unfortunately pretty much out of contention. Currently running in 15th place. Going to allow Burks through. Burks wants to think carefully about how hard he attacks, because he knows that Vallis is going to drop out of contention. Won't need to stop for the drive-through, but will need to go through the pit lane with the pit limiter on. That'll lose him quite a substantial amount of time. I imagine he'll rejoin around 20th, 21st. Just going through a chicane. Burks and FLP will be looking at this thinking, right, is our chance to make up some places. FLP is definitely having a look at the BMW of Burks, perhaps hoping he can nip through when Vallis pulls into the pits. If they got a run on that BMW as FLP is trying to look at the inside, but has thought better of it. Could have perhaps done outbraking. He was on the inside, so if he can outbrake from that position, he can. It's all fair, I think, to try and make a move up the inside of that corner. BMW should have defended the inside more rather than leaving the door wide open, but FLP decided on the safer side of tucking back in behind the BMW. I think Vallis stayed out then, didn't he? He did indeed. Vallis needs to be careful. Remember, was it... it wasn't Geese who got eliminated, was it? It was another driver who got eliminated at Kota for not serving their drive-through they received at the start of the race within 3 laps. Drivers do need to be cautious. The penalty is applied automatically by the game. Nothing the stewards can do about it. And it is reflective of the real world rules. If you get over drive through, you've only got 3 laps to serve it. Bit of a drift there for the Mercedes. BMW unable to catch up. FLP has dropped right back by over a second. It was right in the back of the BMW and there's now dropped behind it. So that opportunity to get through is definitely gone. So gotta definitely try and get back on it, get caught up again. See Gold must have boxed now at this point. I think we are starting to reach the pit window for some drivers if they're doing an even split strategy. Myself for Beeswax Racing still stuck in 19th. Not too far behind Vallis, so I think I will go through and make up a place. And that's right when this drive-through is served. Gonna go in this time, should do really. Yeah, he's going through there to serve that drive-through. So that will drop Vallis right down the field. Burks will go through to take 15th place. FLP will move to 16th. And of course everybody behind will move up one place. Waiting on Gold to come through. I'm not sure. Is he close enough? Yeah, he's gone around the last corner. Or has he? Oh, he has gone through the last corner. He's through turn 1 actually, yeah. As is myself for Beeswax Racing, and here comes Vallis there rejoining, I think in 20th place. There's Benes Moromechkov, yep. Diesel has also gone through, I think. Moromechkov, and that will put Vallis. Does he remain ahead? No, there's Moromechkov, so Vallis will be in 20th place when the sector computer settles out. Meanwhile up front, Rudy Geese is finally getting onto the tail of Motin. The gap now just 0.387 seconds. 0.4. Oh, we've got a bit of a mix-up now because we've got somebody rejoining from the pits. Have they? Or is he pulling over? Wherever it is, because that looks like the Mercedes of Kozerski. Definitely slowing down, putting on the brakes there to let all the free leaders through, which is very gracious of him. So no change up front caused by the back marker. Geese slipping slightly off the back of Motin there. And that will be Kozerski, I think. Yeah, it's Kozerski who was very, very, very generous there and pulled over to let the free leaders through. And we are at about the halfway mark. So those drivers that are going for a split 45-minute strategy and not worrying about the weather will all start boxing soon. These free leaders still haven't boxed yet. It's pretty much the closest battle on track. FLP was back up on the back again of Burke, so these two having a right old battle down in 15th and 16th. Moromechkov makes a move on Vallis. Goes deep into turn 1. The Mercedes tries to come back, but I think the Ferrari should have the speed. Or will it? Into the next corner. It's going to be close, but I think the Ferrari should be able to outbrake the Mercedes there. Get a better line through this corner and be able to accelerate away ahead. And yeah, it looks to have made that pass. Scooby-Doo in the background. Running 20 seconds, so getting something from plugging away. That Ferrari did not take that corner well at all, then caught a lower curb. Went wide as a result. So the Mercedes still close on the back. But got a bit too close there, I think, and got frightened himself. Going into the chicane. And that's created a bit of a gap on Moromechkov, which I don't think the Mercedes got too much curb there, pushed it wide. I think that gap's going to really open up now for the Ferrari. Vallis just catching too much curb there a couple of times, bouncing the car, not able to get the power down. Moromechkov, I think, still struggling a little bit on this circuit. So there's every chance that Vallis will be able to get back onto the back of the Ferrari at some point. Out front, Rudy Geese still trying to find a way to catch up with both Motin and Mishij. Cav Bud, don't know if he got damage from that. It was only a very light tap on the rear quarter from the Porsche. So it shouldn't really have given him any bad damage, but he's slowly and steadily dropped off the pace. Gap now to the front three is 6 seconds. And Duque as well appears to have struggled a bit. He's now 4.8, nearly 5 seconds off the back of Bud, and has got Darras in the Audi breathing down his neck. Geese still looking for a way past Motin at the front of the race. I think Mishij is using this opportunity to try and skip away a little bit down the track. Gap now from Mishij to Motin is what, over a second. And Geese trying to start to use some alternate lines, try and put Motin off. Create an opportunity. There won't be much of a way through on this part of the track. Only one line, it's very high speed. More back markers up ahead. And difficult to call in ACC, but if you do start catching back markers, maybe time to think about, is it time to take the pit stop? As you can see, quite a bit of traffic. Shot. It's all quite well spaced out. We are reaching that halfway point. And despite these predicted potentially mixed weather, still no sign of any rain at the Hungaroring. Completely dry race so far for Tier 8. So no weather to mix things up, which was much to my dismay. I usually go okay in the rain, although qualifying for this event, which reminds me, it was a bit of a bloody nightmare. So it was completely dry in free practice, then was bucketing it down for qualification, and then was completely dry for the race. So very little practice in bad wet weather meant, particularly for myself, qualifying was just a total nightmare because it wasn't something I've been able to practice much. Because I've got limited practice time, so those weather conditions not helping me for qualification. It was the same for everybody, and but no sign of any rain in the race, which quite a lot of us had planned around. Certainly, I had planned to run for an hour to start the race, and then at least get to the pit window, knowing what the final 30 minutes of weather was going to be, expecting some rain at some point. But so far, we're nearly 30 laps in, so nearly up to the hour. Still no sign of any rain in this race, and nothing on the weather forecast predicting any weather's going to come. And the driver's always going to have to virtually stop this poor driver to let everybody through. Very, very gracious from some of the back markers here on letting everybody by. Not like a Ferrari. Was it Logan's? No, Logan's. Definitely not Logan. Maybe Schmiak, I think. Letting everybody by. And let Kozerski close right in on him. I think Kozerski might take that opportunity. Schmiak virtually stopped then to let the leaders by. Mishij definitely taking the opportunity in traffic, and while Motin and Geese get a bit excited with each other to try and break away, his lead now 1 second. But not too far behind them, but definitely has lost touch. Manuel Duque is in 5th place, 3-second gap further behind. And Foster, I think people are starting to box now. Darras is pitting. Lord Nem has stayed out. And definitely a sign that people are starting to box, because I was running 18th, 19th, and I'm currently running 12th, so people ahead are starting to pit. I was definitely going long with a view to seeing what the weather did. But I can confirm my tyres were definitely getting very, very tired towards the end of my stint. which has still got some way to go. Paul Martin is in 13th place, so is definitely pitted. Scooby-Doo has stayed out to be in 12th. We know Borymechkov was behind Scooby-Doo, so he's also staying out. But Borymechkov's pit stops are now out of sequence. He pitted quite early on for those repairs. I think it was too early, really, to take on enough fuel to finish the race. Hard to tell. But he's recovered at the moment to 15th and is out of sequence with pit stops, so may well still finish a bit further up. Stefan Blay, I'm hoping, is pitting. He's down in 17th. So if he has boxed, he's waiting for everybody else to take their turn at pitting and for everything to settle out. But for the leaders, Motin going into the pits. It is. So the first of the leaders has blinked. Motin pits. Geese has stayed out. So really a question of how long Motin's pit stop will take and whether the undercut or overcut is the right way to go for this race. Who takes, at the moment, second place. Mashij pit stop is also going to be a factor. If he takes a bit too long, there's not much between the three of them. Motin will be dropping quite a long way down the field when he comes back out, but everybody ahead of him still has to pit. And Molduque now moves into 4th place temporarily. And that is not Cav Bud behind him, that is a lapped car. On the back side of the circuit now, having been through the chicane, key will be, are these two going to start pitting next? Rudy Geese has got a back marker there between himself and Mashij. Are you going to box? Nope, they both stay out. Both the two leaders stay out for the time being. Foster now up to 4th place. And Lord Nem up to 5th. Well, I think it's a bit of a temporary thing. Is Nem going to box this lap? Nope, stays out. And cars that we saw earlier on a long way down the field now moving towards the front. Burks into 7th at the moment. Gold into 9th. And Gold into 8th as places shuffle. Myself for Beeswax Racing up into 9th temporarily. Paul Martin from Gently Bentley in Lexus up into 10th, having completed his pit stop. So quite a lot of drivers ahead of him have still yet to box. He's got Cav Bud behind him. So has Cav not boxed yet? He's down in 11th. Has he kind of fumbled his pit stop a little bit? I did leave repairs on perhaps when he didn't need to. And that has put him behind Paul Martin. So Cav Bud's race started off qualifying in pole, led for quite a long time, then has slowly slipped away. He now finds himself behind Paul Martin. Having a look into turn 1. And qualified on pole, we know he's got good speed. But it wasn't those unusual wet conditions. Has another look going into turn 2, but it's way too far away to make anything of that. But surprising to see Cav behind the Lexus. It can only be from the pit stops and where he rejoined. I mean, Motin is even further down the road. Motin is behind Group. He's behind Feeling Racing Seb. So Motin has really lost out from the pit. So Field Racing Seb has also been boxed because he's dropped right down the field. But Motin is 5 seconds down on Bud. So something went really badly wrong on Motin's pit stop. I don't recall any big incident for him taking damage, so he's lost a ton of time in the pits and recovering back out. And Paul Martin has moved right up the field, as two of the early leaders seem to have dropped almost out of contention there. So Misic has pitted from the lead. Geese has stayed out. Down off the jacks. Where's he going to rejoin, really? I don't think any of these drivers that we're seeing drop down the field got a stop-go 30. I think I would have noticed that. I'd be a lot further down. And Misic rejoins on a very empty track, so the timing of that pit stop was really good for him. The computer won't settle out position until the end of the next sector. With so many drivers pitting at the same time, it can still be a bit confusing as to where the actual positions will settle out. As Lord Nem, Foster and Duque all have to box ahead of Misic, and they'll all drop behind him. But Misic may not be in fifth yet. It looks like he's settling down in sixth behind Burks, but I think Burks definitely needs to box still. So it will be a case of, does the undercut or the overcut work out best? Lord Nem still out, going through the last couple of corners, I think. You gonna box? Nope, stays out still himself. Rudy Geese catching up with that back marker Aston Martin. That is Klomp, I think. No, it's not. Fox R37 on the side of the Aston. Oh, it's Mihai. He's flashing his lights. Geese getting, come on, I'm a leader. Let me through. Definitely looks to be holding up the leader there. Goes wide of the next corner though and lets Geese through. Try to lose as little amount of time as possible. Geese will be desperately trying to get as quick a lap times as he can. Try and make the overcut over both Misic and, well, I think Motin's really dropped out. If you look where Misic is just passing the start finish line and Motin has only just come around the final corner. So what was a 1 second gap is now a huge gap to Misic, who is leading the race. Cav Bud has actually benefited from those pit stops. He's passed Paul Martin now. He's got a 10-second gap to Misic, so he was dropping down the field. He has made a slight recovery. But could Bud call back a podium finish? Where Duque is going to be interested in when he pits and recovers back to the track. Could be between the pair of them. But all eyes will be on Geese, who's not pitted this lap either. Carries on through. And Duque's also not boxed. Stays out. And Lord Nem. No, this time he dives in. So Lord Nem dives into the pits from third place, 33 laps completed. You just see myself, Beeswax Racing, go through on shot there. I have clearly boxed because I'm down in 22nd place. So now I've served my pit stop. Drop right back down the field for me. And, well, it feels like it's a long, long way back to get into any position here. But could still be cars ahead of us. Scooby-Doo, I've noticed, hasn't pitted yet. So 22 is not the final position yet for me. But another depressing race in Season 12. Rudy Geese just been through the chicane. How many more laps can he hang out the front? Even I had lasted an hour at this point. My tyres were shot and I was getting low on fuel. Duque in the Lexus, 14 seconds behind current leader. Lord Nem still serving his pit stop. And Misic is the one who's going to want to slip through to the front of the race when all these pit stops settle out. He's coming up towards the chicane, I believe. No, he's not. Alright. Just gone through the first couple of corners of a lap. After this one, he'll have the chicane. And Rudy Geese finally pits, so this will be the real crunch. He's just into the pit lane. Shigechi is just going into the chicane. He's going to be really tight. I think he's too far away. But Rudiger still hasn't stopped yet. Message got 3 more corners to go, really. Oh no, he's a bit further back. Now he'll have 3 more corners to go to the end of the lap. Geese has stopped. He's got a good box position. He's right at the end of the pit lane. It does feel like it's too far for Message to get round here. There you go. He's moving again, and Message is still not even into turn 1 yet. He's only just passing the pit lane entrance. So the Rudy Geese has definitely made the overcut work. Not even in sight for Message. So massive lead stolen by Geese there. What went wrong in the pit stops for Message and Motin, who both completely dropped out of the picture? Meanwhile, Kozierski, who's having probably an afternoon to forget, has now got a drive-through. He's had a few incidents, dropped right down the field, has recovered a bit, now has a drive-through to serve. So that's going to put him right down out the field, and definitely if you do cuts like that, you will get track warnings. So Kozierski coming round to serve that penalty. Rudy Geese, that may have been a race-winning move, because the lead he has over Message is, I don't think it's 43 seconds. That would be nearly half a lap. I'm not sure it's that far ahead, but definitely is well clear of Message, Bud and Motin, who are the only threats. Motin definitely a loser in the pit stops there. Duque definitely has to box at some point, so he will drop out of the picture for the lead of this race. But we can see Geese just coming up to finish the outlap from his pit stop, and that couldn't have gone more perfect if he'd have tried. You can see it's not a million miles. It definitely isn't the 43 seconds it was showing at one point. Looks like Duque. Oh, he's dropped back. Maybe the computer was very confused when Message rejoined the track, but the gap is around 14 seconds, and that is a huge gap to steal in a pit stop. I can only assume that repairs were left on for the BMW for it to take that long in the pits. I'm not sure what may have occurred to have incurred that level of damage. Rudy Geese is totally away now, and there's still around 15 laps to serve to race, but you can't see any way back for the competition. 14 seconds is a huge gap to make up at the Hungaroring, and you've got to catch and then try and pass. Duque 3 seconds down on Message, and just 5 seconds ahead of Bud, but when he serves his pit stop, you're going to assume he's going to come out around the P7 with his teammate. Cav Bud currently looking at third place on the podium, so a good recovery drive from that spin, and when he was slipping back before the pit stops, maybe his tyres were really tired and he was losing a lot of grip perhaps. Duque still hanging on, staying out for a long time. Sure, those tyres are protesting. But as it happened, as we move into the last 15 laps, there was no rain, despite the predicted weather predictions that there would be rain in this race, which would impact substantially on how the race developed. It was a completely dry event, and quite a number of us who were planning around rain got caught out. Myself, I know the Gently Bentley team were also planning. We're expecting rain and planned around it, and presumably quite a number of other drivers, Rudy Geese amongst them, and Message, both. We all went very long waiting on the weather to change, and it never happened. So those drivers that pitted at the halfway mark kind of luckily probably made the best choice, because they got the most optimum grip from their tyres throughout the entire race. Back down for me in 21st. The big gap, 7 seconds to Burks, and then Burks has got a 4-second gap to FLP. We might not get back to it later on, but I think it was a lot more than this, the gap. I can confirm. I caught right up to those two. I had a very, very strong last half hour of the race, pushed very, very hard, and closed a substantial gap up from Burks and FLP. But unfortunately, I caught them on the very last lap, and being the Hungaroring, there was no way through. Scooby-Doo still plugging away. He might hate this track, but his tyres must hate him more because he's still not pitted for new tyres. Rudy Geese out front. His lead is strong enough that he can probably ease back a little bit for the last probably 30 minutes of this race, and Siege will have a hard time catching him for such a big gap. And Waduke still hanging out on those first set of tyres. Is he going to box this lap is the question. Coming into the last couple of corners. The danger if you stay out for too long on those set of tyres that grip will just go completely and you'll suddenly lose an awful lot of time. He stays out again. He's really wringing the life out of those tyres all the way as far as he can go. And that was well on the hour that I pitted, and I pitted a while back, so Malduke still dragging out the life from most set of tyres. Motin trying to stay ahead of Darras, who's 0.8 of a second behind him. I think the interesting bit will be for Darras and Paul Martin about where Duque will rejoin after his pit stop. There's not huge gaps here. It's possible that Duque may be behind his teammate when he comes out. The gap behind Darras and Martin is 8 seconds, so that's where it's touch and go about where Duque will rejoin. Borymechkov has really driven himself back into this race. Dropped right out of the running, long way down the field. He's got Blade breathing right down his neck. He needs to be careful. Blade's had quite an exciting afternoon. But Borymechkov up into 8th. Those tyres. Oh, in the background there, that was Lord Nem doing a bit of Nemness. You can't go that way. Let's do the way around. There we go. Now you're pointing the right way. So, now what are you doing? There we go. Yeah, but now put your foot down and now you're back on the track. So Lord Nem completely spooning it up for Beeswax Racing. Caught him right in the act there. And he was in a much better position there. I think he was around 10th, but he definitely isn't now. We've got Blay on the back of Borymechkov. Now we've finished watching them, checking out if the barriers are all okay off the side of the track. Knocking a few of them back into shape. Got Paul Martin then, Borymechkov. Oh, and Aston. Sorry, the Porsche there of Blay dived out of the way of Borymechkov. I think that was a fair pass. He was up the inside definitely for that corner, and Borymechkov nearly came together with him. Saw him the last second and gave him the space. But it was the same corner again where Borymechkov has been struggling all race. And Blay saw the opportunity and took it. Got up the inside. So Blay will be looking at Paul Martin next. Where's Duque? Still going. Still going. Now he's got Cav Bud. And now he must be thinking maybe his tyres must be going. Because Cav has caught him. And he's all over the back of the Lexus there. He's got fresh rubber against old rubber. And it really does make a difference in ACC on the age of your tyres and how much grip is left. Coming up towards the chicane, and that Honda is all over. And looked like the door was left wide open there as the Lexus went wide to try and carry as much speed as possible through that corner into the chicane. Oh, he's big dive from the Honda, and I don't think the Lexus had an answer there. He was never going to be able to hold on. He just didn't have the speed going into the chicane. And look how quickly the Honda is pulling away. Those tyres are completely shot for the Lexus, I think. Got no more grip left, and that was the danger of hanging on for too long. He was always going to lose that position to Cav with the way the pit stops were going to play out. But look how much of a lead the Honda's drawn out almost straight away on the Lexus. Surely Duque is going to have to pit this time round because he's just losing time. Hand over fist now. It's just going to cost him more in terms of where he rejoins the race. And I expect we'll see Lexus dive into the pits. No, we don't. He's plugging away at it. I think that is a mistake. I think it would have been wiser to accept the fact that those tyres are shot to bits, get into the pits and get that change made. Rudy Geese, his lead now chopped to 12 seconds, but there can't be too many laps left to go. before this race is over. So looking in a good position for the victory. Message in second place. He's got a huge gap over Cav Bud, who's just got through on Duque to take third place. And that looks to have the top three are settling out, barring a disaster and a trip into the barriers. I'm not going to curse it. Motin, who should slip into fourth place when Duque does finally pit. And that way the result is looking now, it will look like there's going to be a potential change at the top of the Drivers' Championship. Motin only goes in with a lead of 9 points into this round over Rudy Geese. But with Rudy looking to win this race at the moment, if things stay as they are, and Motin perhaps likely to take fourth place, that'll definitely swing things round in favour of Rudy Geese at the end of the third round. And he will take the lead in the Drivers' Championship. Darras, who was on the back of Duque for quite some time, on the back of Bud for some time, slipping backwards a little bit there, in sixth place. And Blay has got through on Paul Martin. And he's pushing away, but he's got a 10-second gap to the back of Darras, so Blay will really have to drive hard to catch up with the Audi. Boromechkov looks to have got through that corner in one piece this time. He's got Griffith and Klomp and Foster and Logan's all closing in on him. And it's been one long defensive battle for Boromechkov for almost the entire race. And those tyres will be really tired on that Ferrari. I presume he has enough fuel to get to the end of the race. There's still around 12 laps to go as we go into lap 41. And they're queuing up behind him. Two BMWs having a look at each other into turn one, and Foster as well. Oh, he's gone very, very wide there. There's that Griffiths who's gone really, really wide. And two of them have gone past him in one corner. He's trying to have a look down the next corner. But no, it's not going to happen. Boromechkov trying to defend. It's all very, very close here for P9 down to P13. Going into the chicane. Paul Martin trying to just stay ahead of this group of 5 cars. We're all fighting for a place inside the top 10. Klomp now right on the back of Boromechkov. And then we're coming up to the corner that he struggled with the most. He's in the middle of a track again rather than over to the left. Goes very wide. No, he just stays in the curbs, but because he took that neutral line, he's left the door open, but Klomp thought better of it than to chuck it up the inside. Or I think it's that bit where the Ferrari stays in the middle of a track that's costing Boromechkov every single time through that corner and leaving the way open for other drivers to attack him. And all concertining up as they go through the last corner of a lap and onto the start-finish straight. Somehow the Ferrari has pulled out a few car lengths over Klomp, giving them an opportunity to hang on to that, staying in front into turn one. BMW really good on the braking, closes right up on the Ferrari. Foster's trying to have a look at the inside in the McLaren. Boromechkov gets his foot down first and pulls away for turn two. And again, you see the BMW close up on the braking. But there's no way through really in the next few set of corners. Not stopping him from trying to have a look. Oh, he got out of shape there. BMW lost speed. Caught too much of the curb. And that's let Foster go up the outside. Klomp goes backwards one place. Foster through. Behind them, Griffiths is trying to hold off Logans. Through the chicane again. Paul Martin must be open this lot. Keep fighting each other this hard. Griffiths having to take a very defensive line there against Logans through the chicane. Foster trying to get onto the back of Boromechkov. Again, he's not getting all the way over to the left in the Ferrari. You can see how much the other cars are able to close up on him every time there through that corner. Has a look, but there's no way through on the inside there. He's not close enough, but it's caused the Ferrari to go a bit deep into the corner. But he's got the inside for the next corner, so I don't think Foster's going to have a good dive there. We got very close to each other. Ferrari goes quite wide to ensure there's enough space. And then into the last corner. I'd say from there, the Ferrari's always shown very good acceleration at the last corner. And always able to steal a couple of car lengths. So the Ferrari lives to fight another day. Meanwhile, I think this battle's been going on all race. Klomp and Foster again. Klomp's looking, and he's very good on the braking, the BMW, so dives up the inside of the McLaren and gets ahead of Foster again. So another change of position as they go through T1. The McLaren could try and outbrake, but I'd be very brave indeed to outbrake the BMW, which has been really good. But then the BMW makes a mistake on the braking. Foster's up the inside, but the BMW is going to try and defend. Makes a big mistake there. Oh, and they've come together, both the BMWs. Klomp definitely caught the curb there, and it slowed him down, and then next thing you knew, Griffiths was right alongside him, and the two came together on track. Borymechkov, meanwhile, tries to scamper away up front while that happened behind him, and he's got Foster now just over a second behind, so a bit of breathing room for Borymechkov after Klomp and Griffiths came together and took each other out. Will Borymechkov get this corner right? No, he keeps going too much to the middle of a track compared to everybody else, and I think it's costing him a lot of time around that corner. So Foster and Logins will be on the back of him quite soon. Griffiths has now dropped 7 seconds down, and can't see where. I think he may have dropped out of the race, the other driver. Lump. Can't see him anymore. Maybe the damage was too great, not sure. Rudy Geese, our race leader, around 10 laps to go, I think, based on timings. Still got a good, healthy lead over Misich in second place. Cav Bud in the Honda, who's leading for quite a while at the start of the race until suddenly slipped down the field. Has managed to recover back up to third. Manuel Duque, is he going to box at all? Is he going to make it all the way to the end? Has he sneaked a little pit stop in there? I've not noticed, but he's still in fourth place. Now he's got Motin on the back of him, and he's been out on those tyres for a long time. We saw how much he was losing pace against the Honda, because when the Honda went for him, and the Honda's now 7 seconds up the road on him. It was only a few laps ago that we saw a Honda go through on Duque, and Bud has disappeared right down the road, so it doesn't look good for Duque. He's really hanging on to his tyres and his position at the moment. Motin is right on the tail of him, and Darras in the Audi is also closing in very quickly. Blay, pushing as hard as he can, is still 8 seconds down the road. It's a long way back for Blay to get back in the fight here. Motin right on the back of the Lexus as he comes through the final couple of corners on the start-finish straight. Motin can get this right coming through the final corner. He might have a run on Duque into turn 1. And he's up the inside there almost of the Lexus. He just needs to get a good acceleration. Something I never found the Aston Martin was very good at, though. So down the start-finish straight. And I think that Lexus is too far away from the Aston Martin. That poor acceleration of the Aston, perhaps. Meaning that I'm not sure how Motin's going to be able to do it. Through turn 1. Darras trying to get onto the back of these two. The lead for Geese now under 10 seconds, but Geese is probably taking it easy and trying not to take too many risks. You don't want to throw away a race victory when you're this close to the end. And you can see the gap there from Motin to Duque is right on the tail of a Lexus. But there's not really much of a way through unless we've seen drivers making mistakes, perhaps going into the chicane. No mistakes from Duque, but Darras now is right in the back of these two, so it's a three-way battle. Fourth place at the moment, with the final few laps coming up. There's some good speed there out of the Aston Martin with Motin through the set of corners. One of the better opportunities for doing an overtake is coming up. I think the Lexus has got too much speed there going for the corner, but you can see Duque is starting to get a little bit defensive. Move slightly to the right, but the Aston Martin is too far away. Aston taking a lot of curb there, trying to get onto the back of the Lexus for the final couple of corners. Again, trying to set it up for a pass into turn 1, but I still don't think that Aston Martin has got the acceleration over the Lexus. You can see the wider line the Lexus is taking there in the final corner. Gets good drive out of the corner, and again, Aston Martin is about 4 or 5 car lengths down by the time they get up to acceleration. And we've seen the BMW do some amazing things on the braking into turn 1, but I don't think the Aston Martin can manage the same amount of late braking. Dara's trying to hang on to the back of him, maybe looking for an opportunity if a mistake is made or if the two of these two come together. Aston closing right up into turn 2, but no way through really on the next couple of corners, unless you forget somebody making a mistake on this straight and losing speed, catching too much of the curb, or perhaps going on the grass, or maybe doing a Lord Nem and doing a little pirouette and having a look at the barriers and do a bit of grass cutting. Lexus looked a little bit out of shape there, but he's got the inside line. Again, I don't think the Aston will be able to accelerate away and get past the Lexus before the chicane. They go through line astern as usual. Oh, the Lexus did have a slide there, but there's no way through for the Aston. And he's right up on the bumper, but again, it's just one line through these next couple of corners. If you can force a mistake, and you could see there that Duque was doing the same thing as Borymechkov earlier, going very much in the middle of the track for that right-hander. But the slow acceleration of the Aston meaning that Motin is unable to really capitalise on that. Duque carefully covering the line on the final couple of corners to make sure there's no way through. And you can expect, again, the Aston to close up, but the better acceleration of the Lexus to open up a big gap as we go down the start-finish line. I'll say this, perhaps it's as close as it's been for the last few laps, but again, it's 2-3 car lengths. It's just not close enough for the Aston to make a dive into T1. It's just too far away. And Motin may well also be looking over his shoulder a bit at the Audi of Daras that's right behind him. Through turn 2 and then through to turn 3. A little bit of curb caught there by the Aston, but it didn't slow it down any. Lights come on as it starts to get dark at the Hungaroring. And the track may look like it's glistening, but there was no rain. Bit of late braking from the Aston, but it just won't be enough. Duque will always have that inside line covered. And once you're into the chicane section, unless you're right alongside somebody to force them wide really, you're not going to be able to make a way through. Motin there trying to move around in the mirrors of Duque, but he'll ignore that, going through the chicane. You know, he'll know what line he needs to take to protect himself. And again, he's taking a very defensive line through this corner. Going to slow him down, but the Aston just too slow on the acceleration to have any chance of getting up alongside the Lexus for the next corner. And I get the terrible feeling we're going to see the same moves being made all the way to the end of the race. The Aston just not really having the acceleration. I hope he's not flashing his lights there as Motin, because that's not permitted. You're only allowed to flash your lights if you're coming through on a lapped car to let them know you're there. Trying to distract your opponents is very much frowned upon in AOR. You could always give the benefit of a doubt and just say it was the way the graphics work. Trying to find a way up the inside of Lexus, but Duque will have the inside line covered for the next left-hander on turn 2. The Audi trying to sneak away down on Motin, but not going to happen. You can see again, the Lexus sticks to its line. There's really no way through the Hungaroring. Perhaps Motin needs to think of a new plan way to try and get the Lexus offline. Just got a bit of a curb in there through the chicane, which slowed it down a little bit. But because of a lack of overtaking opportunities in the next few corners, all that can happen is the Aston gets close to the back of the Lexus. And then through this corner, this is the best opportunity really to try and force the Lexus offline. But again, too quick on the acceleration for the Aston. They are catching up on some traffic. That might present an opportunity. Rudy Gies's lead out front, with just a few laps to go, has been chopped down to 8 seconds, but 8 seconds is more than enough space for him to relax. Cav borders closed to within 4.5 seconds of Besiege for third place. Meanwhile, fourth place, it's Duque in the white Lexus for Gently Bentley in the Lexus, followed by Oscar Motin, followed by Jarras in the Audi. But just no way through on the Lexus itself. Meanwhile, Foster's closed up on the other Gently Bentley driver, right alongside them. Gently Bentley's got way wide there. Easy move for Foster. I think he did enough to put off for Lexus, who doesn't appear very happy about it. He's found his light switch. And you've got Logan's in the Ferrari behind trying to find a way through. I don't know when we cut to it. It seemed fair enough. The McLaren have made a move up the inside. Forced the Lexus wide. And Foster goes through for 8th place. Paul Martin for Gently Bentley / Lexus pushed down to 9th. And still, Motin trying to find some way around the Lexus. Whilst these three are held up behind the Lexus, Stefan Blay is now within 4 seconds in the Porsche. But I think he's running out of laps. In the same way I was running out of laps a bit further down the field. You see me in the background here with FLP in the 86 Aston, Burks in the BMW, and me in the Ferrari for Beeswax Racing just in the background. We caught FLP for quite a big gap, but again we were running out of laps before the end of the race. Duque continues to hold off. Motin and Darras has definitely done his pit stop. He's sneaked there in somewhere, maybe early doors, but he definitely got the pit stop done. No way could go this far on a single tank of fuel. But thou shalt not pass. Duque / Gandalf is not letting the Aston or the Audi any chance of getting through. Meanwhile, not know where to look really. Logan's is closed right in now on the Gently Bentley Lexus. Look how far Foster is down the track straight away. So the Lexus definitely much the cork in the bottle all around the track. Trying to fend off the attentions of the cars behind them. Logan slowly dropping back a little bit. Burks is closing on FLP. I think FLP now is proving to be a cork in the bottle because I also got straight in the back of this group of two. Pretty much straight away. Our leader, Rudy Gies. Over the line again. Round turn 1 and into turn 2. All three leaders round the first corner safely. Just behind them, Duque still holding off Motin and Darras as it gets darker and darker at the Hungaroring. Blay you can see now right in the background as Cartley's up. He's only 2.25 seconds behind them, but I think he's just out of time. He might just catch them up before the end of the race. Unless Duque makes a horrendous mistake. I just don't see there's any way through. I just don't think the Aston Martin has got the acceleration to get past the Lexus coming out of the corner and get as close as it needs to the Lexus to enable it to make a pass on the inside of one of the corners towards the end of the lap. Again, the Lexus just able to drive away. Not even take a particularly fast line there through that corner and stay ahead of the Aston. Darras perhaps realising it might not happen, is slipped slightly away from the pack of these two. And meanwhile behind, Burke's managed to get through an FLP. And I had just caught up to the back of him, but I can tell you I found no way through. And Rudy Geese pulls over, having taken victory in round 2. So this is the way it's going to finish up. Rudy Geese over the line in first. Shikichi second and Cav Bud third. So there we go. Let's have a look at the final official race results. Rudy Geese over the line in first place. Masuki Chi for Visually Impaired Racing took second, and Cav Bud from Revsport International took third. Manuel Duque definitely sneaked that pit stop in without us seeing him. Managed to get the Gently Bentley Lexus over the line in fourth. Oscar Motin finishes in fifth. Not what he needed for his championship drive. George Darras in sixth. Stefan Blay from Urban Led Racing finally got a good result there in the Porsche in seventh. Mark Foster in eighth. Paul Martin, the other Gently Bentley driver in the Lexus, finished in ninth. Eric Logans in 10th. Lord Nem for Beeswax Racing, having had a few trips across the grass and an odd spin or two, finished in 12th. Cameron Gold for Revsport International finished in 14th. Further down the field, I finished in 19th for Beeswax Racing, having had that unfortunate very slow spin at the start of the race. And Daniel Vallis for Riders on the Storm, he finished in 21st. Good old Scooby-Doo, who we kept picking up, who said this was his least favourite track of all, he managed to come home in 22nd place in the end. Quite a number of drivers didn't finish on this round. Philip Schmeck, Gav Diesel, who we saw get a drive-through penalty early doors, Richard Conley, Blind Guy Morphy for Visually Impaired Racing, and Nikolai Koenig. What impact has that had on the Drivers' Championship? Well, Rudy Geese moves into the lead, moves ahead of Oscar Motin with 2 wins, giving him 267 points. Oscar coming in today in 5th place, that means he's now 26 points adrift in 2nd place. Cav Bud from Revsport International, he's in 3rd place with no movement. Mashiki Chief from Visually Impaired Racing also doesn't move from 4th. Manuel Duque with that good result in 4th. The Gently Bentley and the Lexus moves up to 4th, while Eric Logans moves up 3 places into 6th place. Steve Banks, who was a non-starter today, drops down into 7th place. George Darras moves up 10 places into 8th place on the championship. And Ivan Barameshkov, who we saw having all sorts of trouble in today's race, managed to finish in 11th, and that's given him enough points to move back up 5 places into 9th place. E Mini, who was a non-starter today, drops down 3 places to 10th. On the teams front, there's been a big clean-up, and those teams that couldn't get their 2 drivers lined up for the end of this race have been eliminated. That leaves us only 6 teams in this season's championship. Revsport International, Cav Bud has now teamed up with Cameron Gold, and they head the championship table at the moment with 278 points. Visually Impaired Racing, Blind Guy Morphy and Mishikichi just behind them with 23 points adrift with 255. Gently Bentley in the Lexus, Manuel Duque and Paul Martin have 219 points. And then there's a big gap to the next 3 teams. Beeswax Racing in 4th, myself and Lord Nem, we've only got 85 points at the moment. Urban Led Racing, Stefan Blake and Nico Urbantat finally off the mark, they've got 53 points. And Riders on the Storm, Daniel Vallis and Steel Co. round out the table in 6th place. Well, that's all the action and championship outcomes from Hungary. Next round, it'll be the mountain. Mount Panorama at Bathurst usually takes no prisoners. A 60-minute race is what's coming up next there for round 4 of season 12. Hopefully we'll see you there either for the live stream or for the fully commentated race that comes out a week or so later. Thanks for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe and all those sort of good things that YouTube enjoys. And apparently people writing stuff in the comments helps as well. See you in the next round. Thanks for watching. Cheerio.